Welcome to the CSG and Tier 3 Technologies Partnership webinar. My name is Sarah Gorman, and I'm the Client Success Manager at Tier 3. We all want to thank you so much for being here today to learn about maximizing your existing investment in Riverbed through the CSG and Tier 3 Partnership. Today, you will hear from our panelists, Mark Sliker, Managing Partner at CSG, Michael Painter, our CEO at Tier 3 Technologies, and Tier 3's lead software developer, Ben Thompson. So just to let you all know, in case you did not, audience members will not be able to communicate with us verbally. So if you have any questions during the performance, please utilize the chat feature and we'll try and address your questions if we can. In the next few minutes, we're going to provide a brief overview of our partnership, how we are driving innovation in Riverbed performance management through the use of our platform, and how this will benefit CSG's client base. Towards the end, we will provide a high-level overview and demo of the platform ESP and talk about our approach to ensuring client success. At the end of the webinar, probably about 20 minutes left in the presentation, we will officially open up the floor to any questions and close it out with a brief survey. So let's get started. I'm going to hand it over to our panelist, Mark Sliker, to make the first of the introductions.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And thanks for everybody for taking the time this morning to learn about this partnership with CSG and Tier 3. All of you on the call have worked with us for several years, and hopefully you see CSG as experts in steelhead technology in particular and riverbed technology in general. Many of you have experienced consistent changes in your riverbed direct reps, but our team at CSG has always been constant and will always continue to be. I've had the pleasure of working with many of you since I broke in with Riverbed back in 2005, and some of you even further back than that. As times change and technology changes and how we consume that technology changes, so too must we in how we deliver services. So I'm very excited and pleased to introduce you to our partner, Tier 3 Technologies.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Michael Painter. I'm the CEO of Tier 3 Technologies, and I couldn't be more pleased to be working with Mark Sliker and his folks at CSG. We've known Mark for about 4 years, and I got to tell you, philosophically, we are closely aligned. Mark is so customer focused that when I got to know him and I got to know the relationships that he has with his clients, I was just blown away by his total commitment to service and support and client satisfaction. So we're excited about this partnership with his firm, and we hope that with the complement of our platform, ESP, and Mark's capabilities, that we really will bring some significant value to you all, his clients. What I'd like to do now is just let our lead developer for ESP introduce himself. Ben?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Thompson. Like Mike said, I'm the lead developer for our ESP platform. I've been here at Tier 3 for about 2 years, programming for about 10, and I'm excited to show you what we can do. Mark, do you want to talk about why we've partnered?
Yep, sure. So the combined experience between CSG and Tier 3 is unmatched anywhere, I believe. With Tier 3 having moved away from being a traditional reseller like CSG is and moved into more of a managed services space, I thought it made really great sense for CSG to partner with Tier 3 to offer our Riverbed customers some additional services. It's really important to mention here that our intent is not to remove the services that we provide for you today from you. Many of you work with Kevin Werner on your steelhead configs, and that's going to remain available to you. But rather, we really want to expand on those services through this partnership. Next slide, Ben. So as Mike mentioned, he and I met about 4 years ago at our annual Riverbed Partner Conference, and he had his laptop with him at the time and gave me a demo of ESP, and the excitement that he showed in demoing this product to me was very clear. Over the years, we've talked about different ways that we might be able to work together, and the timing today is kind of perfect for each of us, I think. So if memory serves, the first steelhead was shipped back in 2003, and I think Tier 3 was the third or fourth reseller signed up with Riverbed. As all of you probably know, CSG was formed in 2008, but our team started with Riverbed back in 2005. So together, I'd put our combined experience and knowledge of Riverbed products, policies, procedures, up against anyone's, including most of the people that work for Riverbed directly today. One of the things that we run into in the services that we offer today, namely our steelhead checkups, is that they're very reactive in nature. Of course, most of you have experienced some other services that we provide. We never ship a device to a customer without it being pre-configured, or at least having a plan in place to assist you with configuring it once you get it. But in regards to our steelhead checkups, like I mentioned, they're very reactive. We also find that much like Riverbed used to advertise, set it and forget it, there's not a lot of active monitoring going on by our customers. We'll often get called in to diagnose steelhead performance issues once we're certain that there is an issue. You've received some complaints or whatnot. So this service provides some different levels of service available. The level I'm most excited about is the active monitoring service which is available. That's going to allow us to take a proactive approach to your steelhead performance. So when we see an issue, we'll be able to assist you in resolving that issue immediately rather than waiting several weeks or however long it takes for you to start getting complaints to where we know that there's issues. So let me turn the presentation over to Mike at this point, and he'll talk a little bit more about ROI.
Thanks, Mark. Just to cover a little bit of philosophical approach from Tier 3, and I believe Mark's approach as well, is we have for a long time felt that the set it and forget it was not a really good message to send to the marketplace. It was, an accurate statement relative to how easy the initial setup of the steelheads were, but to set it and forget it assumes that your all's environment, your IT environment, is static, unchanging, and we felt that we had to continually be in a position to ensure that you all were getting the return on investment and the results that you were getting when you initially made those decisions. You've got changing environments out there. I can tell you we get daily updates from Microsoft. We use Microsoft 365 here, and the update bulletins are just every day, and there's multiple changes. So that, speaks to the fact that your environments are constantly changing, and it's not static, and set it and forget it is not a sound management approach. What we did was we worked toward developing a platform that was proactive in nature and would, in essence, tell you when you might be trending toward a downturn in the ROI, proactively addressing issues and proactively helping you maintain that return on investment. We believe that a riverbed being turned into an expensive piece of copper on the wire is not an appropriate use of corporate assets. So we've been in a really interesting environment. As Mark said, we were one of the first partners to work with Riverbed. When I first met with Riverbed, Jerry Kennelly's desk was a card table in their old borrowed headquarters. So we've sort of grown up with them. We have a group of engineers here that are all certified in various Riverbed technologies. But we saw where the marketplace and where the IT management world was going. If we look back at the strategy of IT prior to 2007, there was really a lack of focus on any automated processes. You threw a lot of people at things. You use those people to try and address the problems. But the problem with that approach is that most of those were reactive in nature. We had firefighters out there, and we felt that that was not an appropriate way to approach that. Some vendors offered disconnected point solutions for each process and technology, and they were deployed on premise. They required themselves a lot of IT support, and they were costly to maintain and to upgrade. The reporting and the analytics, in order to ensure continued performance management, was pretty limited, and it didn't paint a complete picture of what was going on in the environment. Visibility into an infrastructure and visibility into a network, and most importantly, visibility into applications are, we believe, the keystone of maintaining the return on investment out there. So let's fast forward today, and the world of information technology and business has changed significantly. I mean, all of the buzzwords now that we're subjected to on a daily basis, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, all of those things are coming to the fore now in terms of how do we automate processes and procedures and technologies to continue to get that return on investment. Another dynamic that's playing into this is about 22,000 people per month are retiring. The baby boomer generation is moving out, and there's a significant amount of brain drain that's going out there too. So we're having to look at different ways to manage the technologies that we're deploying out there more effectively, more efficiently, and to continue to get that return. So it comes down to enterprises looking for more integrated reporting and analytics that are becoming essential for that automation process. All right, so what's all this mean to you? What I'd like to do now is just get a feel for the audience here. I'd like to understand from you all, how many of you all are proactively managing your Riverbed infrastructure, or reactively, or how many of you just don't know? So we're going to put a survey question up on the screen, and we'd ask you to respond to that. And I'm going to pause here for a few seconds and let everybody respond. So if I had the theme song from Jeopardy, I'd play that right now, but we're going to pause for about 10 seconds. And if you would, let us know how you're managing your Riverbed infrastructure. Okay, thanks. We appreciate that. So we got some mixed feedback here. Some folks are proactive. Some folks are still somewhat in the firefighter mode. So we normally find that's pretty much the mix out there. All right. We'd like to talk just a few minutes now about the importance from our perspective, and hopefully you share that perspective with us, of Riverbed management. So Mark, I'm going to turn it back to you for a second, if you would like to take over here.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. I've been, everybody I talk to, even at Riverbed, I like to point out that your investment in the steelheads that you purchased is just as viable today as when you decided to purchase them in the first place. With the move of data and applications to the cloud, the need for optimization is even more important, and the need to maintain performance on those steelheads becomes even more vital. So as you move, your existing steelhead technology is completely compatible with cloud acceleration products like the cloud steelhead, or if you're moving your entire data center to the cloud and have compute in the cloud utilizing virtual steelhead. And now Riverbed has a new SaaS accelerator for hosted applications as well. Riverbed is currently supporting the Office 365, Salesforce.com, Box, ServiceNow, and they're actively looking for additional SaaS partners. So once a company becomes a SaaS partner, they will have steelhead technology built into their infrastructure, and then optimization occurs between your steelhead and theirs. So all we need is to add licenses to start that optimization. So I don't see steelhead technology going away. As we move more into cloud services, I see it even more vital and expanding. Mike, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll back up Mark's comments there. We believe that the riverbeds do have plenty of miles left in them. We're seeing a major transition in most of our clients to a cloud infrastructure, either partially or wholly or hybrid. But the interesting thing about it is nobody's figured out yet how to overcome the problem of latency, no matter how much bandwidth you throw at it. But even if you get lower latency networks out there, the riverbeds still give us a window into the application visibility and into what's going on in the network, and actually gives us troubleshooting points of presence at the edge and in the infrastructure that are unparalleled out there in the marketplace. The transition to the cloud is real. Every client that we talk to every day is talking about, well, this is going to cloud or that's going to cloud. And the problem that they have is stated right there in that last point. You as an IT management organization have very little or no control over the SaaS delivery from where the SaaS is delivered from those cloud service providers. We actually have clients that in the same office are hitting Microsoft 365 infrastructure in 3 different parts of the world because of where they're being served out of. All of those have different latency profiles. All of those are subject to delays and so forth. So all of those problems that are being introduced by this transition and this hybrid infrastructure are addressable through the existing infrastructure you've got in place. And the approach that we take is to make sure that you continue to maximize that by educating you on additional capabilities, by monitoring those capabilities, and by making recommendations to you via ESP on how you can maximize those capabilities. So hopefully Mark and I have done a good job communicating to you the importance of managing the assets. So here's our approach in doing it that'll support IT KPIs. And we get into a lot of debates here about key performance indicators. And we've seen a transition over the last number of years. We actually have a board member that we were speaking with the other day, and it was the CFO of a very large national healthcare provider, a hospital chain. And we started talking about KPIs in one of our meetings, and his response was, well, initially we just told the IT folks how much money they had to spend and go do what they could do with that money. But he said, now we've completely modified that approach, and we're trying to tie the KPIs, the key performance indicators for the IT organization, into the key performance indicators for the business. And you all as an IT organization are seeing more and more of a transition from you all being a cost center to being a strategic asset for the firms out there. So what we're trying to do and what we're doing is we're automating key processes to help eliminate errors, to increase the productivity, and to decrease the mean time to resolution on those problems. And that's what we've aligned our ESP approach to. We're trying to accelerate key processes such as troubleshooting and reporting so that you can shift more time to solving the problem and acting sooner and getting better alignment across all of your IT divisions and the organization to those corporate KPIs that are really what are driving the business value of infrastructure investment in IT. So what I'd like to do now is just give you a slight intro into what Everready Services platform is, or as we call ESP. One of the folks here, Sarah, was talking one day in one of our meetings, and she basically said, well, ESP is like gaining a sixth sense because it acts as a technician, in essence, sitting out there in the background, doing its thing automatically and supporting the targets and the goals of the IT organization. So I like that sixth sense. So ESP is helping you gain your sixth sense. Our Riverbed performance monitoring and management software, something along the lines that was created, it was created by Riverbed certified engineers for the sole purpose of simplifying our troubleshooting and maximizing our Riverbed performance. We've actually talked about how do we do our jobs, most effectively, what are the day-to-day processes and procedures that our engineers were working through to keep, as I like to say, the buttons green. Those of you that are Riverbed users, you know that upper left-hand corner always has a button there telling you what the status is. Our target is to keep them green. So that's what we've done. We have, in our opinion, delivered a world-class management platform, and that's what we're going to talk about here for a second. The schematic that you see on the screen talks about the infrastructure, what our architecture is. We actually deploy an agent in your network. It's our intelligence. It's sitting there checking devices on a regular basis. It's gathering information. It's looking at trending information, and it's reporting back to us. It runs as a virtual machine out there. We have the ability to manage and monitor both steelheads and steel fusion if you're using hyperconverged edge devices out there. We can manage the hypervisors. We can actually get down and talk to you about the status of the virtual machines that are out there. So we've got a lot of capabilities in terms of being able to manage both the steelheads and the steel fusions. What I'd like to do now is turn this over to Ben. Ben's going to talk about a couple of use cases, and basically I like to call it the day in the life of. So Ben, if you'd like to take over.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So like you said, I'm going to be walking you through a day in the life of a network engineer using ESP. It's been our experience that the hardest part of managing a network of steelheads is really just getting that single pane visibility into what your problems are. Mike mentioned it earlier, but before ESP, we usually didn't know there was an issue until somebody called us to complain. And that can take days, weeks, even months. And that's not a good look for a network engineer. And as great as the CMC is for managing your policies, setting up a new device, pushing certificates, it's just not built for day-to-day management. And the only real alternative is logging into each device manually and checking it, and that's hardly efficient. The way that we've addressed that with ESP is by deploying an agent that will pull all of your devices every few minutes, aggregate that data, and then keep you up to date with any active alerts as well as historical information. So we present to you active alerts geolocated on our map, as well as overall performance data and even your top and bottom performers. Which brings us to our dashboard. So it looks like today most of our devices have that nice green button, but we've got 6 sites with a total of 7 alerts, most critical being a site down. If we click through, we can see that this means ESP has determined that we can't even ping the gateway address for that device. So it's not really a device issue. This is a much more widespread network issue. We can then click through to the site information page, and we can use these contact details to get in touch with someone at the site, figure out what's going on. It might be a power outage, they might have ISP troubles, whatever it may be, but this is the first step to figuring out what's going on and what we need to do to resolve it. Next up, we have interface issues alert. Here, ESP has actually identified that we were able to ping the gateway and we were able to communicate with the in-path or secondary interface on the device, but the primary interface was non-responsive. After identifying that, ESP has even gone a step further. It has logged in on that in-path interface and reset the primary interface and rechecked it to determine that it is now in fact responsive. ESP did all of this without the need for engineer intervention, and of course it recorded all of the remediation steps that it took, and that'll be available in perpetuity in your alert history. Our next fire to put out is that one of our devices is reporting 0% or lower optimization, and it can't authenticate with the domain, so it isn't able to sign that SMB traffic. If we click through, we can see that it is in fact doing some optimization, but not enough to make up for the overhead that it's adding on other traffic. We're starting to put together a picture here, but let's dive into the charts to really just make sure. If we head to our port optimization, port optimization, we can see that we're seeing a lot of SMB2 traffic, and this is something that we see all the time. When the steelhead can no longer authenticate with your domain, it can't effectively manage that SMB2 or CIFS traffic. It'll try, but it'll actually end up causing errors, signing errors. It'll have to resend packets. It's a mess. It ends up actually adding significant overhead. And the fact that your HTTP traffic wasn't being optimized very well isn't helping the situation. So without ESP, and actually in our experience, we had a client recently who had been getting reports of issues from one of their devices in Singapore for months that, the network's slow, I can't access my remote files, what's going on? And the engineers out there were doing their best, but they didn't have the Riverbed experience that we have, so they didn't know to look. We put in ESP, we detected that SMB auth alert, and within a day of having it installed, we were able to resolve that issue that had been plaguing them for months. Beyond that port optimization, it's also important to track what the Riverbed isn't optimizing. So as you can see here, and as you would probably expect, the majority of that unoptimized traffic is going to be SSL traffic that we don't have a cert for, and so the Riverbed can't optimize. But one of the values of ESP is that it also tells you other things on the network. So in this case, we can see, looks like somebody's been running BitTorrent in the network, and maybe you have a specific use case, but chances are you probably don't want that running in your corporate network. So easy way to find out when somebody's been doing something they shouldn't. And of course, you can always set if you have a particular target port that you're interested in, whether that's SMB or MAPI or whatever it may be, we do provide faculties where you can you can identify that port and then set a threshold, and we'll give you specific alerts on that port if it falls below that threshold. Moving down the line, we've got another device that doesn't seem to be doing any optimizing. And this one seems to be a very different case. It was optimizing just fine up until about a day ago. This alert tells us that the reason the device can't optimize is because it can't find its peer. If we click through, we can see it only has one peer, but it can't seem to communicate with it. We can then take that IP address, launch our command mode, and run a quick trace to see what the problem might be. So this tells us that traffic only gets through one hop along the line before it gets lost, and it doesn't know where to go to find its peer. And if we note this address and check back on our technical details, we'll see that's in fact the gateway for that site. This tells us that there's probably a more systemic issue at the site, maybe firewall or some other aspect of network configuration. For some reason, this device can't find the route to its peer, which brings me to another point. Riverbeds, by their nature, are fail to wire. We've talked about it a few times, and that's a blessing and a curse. It makes it easy to ignore them, and when they're out of date or they're not connected to their peers, your network doesn't break, it just gets worse. So one of our main goals with ESP is telling you when that network is starting to degrade so you can take action before it becomes critical. Continuing down our alerts, looks like we've got an expiring CA cert. So if we click through, we can see Certisign Autoridade. It looks like this is a big international CA cert that's been expiring. So the steelheads maintain these so that they can actually optimize some of that SSL traffic that's on your network. They'll use the cert to decrypt, then compress, and send along that traffic. However, these certs are only good for a max of about 2 years. After that, they're useless. So we actually offer, we'll clean them up for you automatically. And then, of course, replacement certs will be included in your next RIOS upgrade. But the real value of this expiring cert notification is that is for your custom in-house applications. We've had several customers who, when they first put in their steelheads, they went ahead and added their custom certs or their self-signed certs into the application, and we're seeing great performance across their network of their in-house applications. But again, the years go by, people forget about the Riverbed, and suddenly that cert is expired and your performance is significantly degraded, but nobody's been checking the riverbed in years, so nobody thinks to check for the problem there. Finally, while we are a riverbed-centered company, we do offer up-down monitoring for any of your NRDs with an IP. So whether that's a router, a printer, or the CEO's desktop PC, it's just a great way to check that critical infrastructure is still up and running. So that pretty much takes us through ESP in terms of day-to-day use. But we also offer extensive reporting. So whether it's just a simple inventory report, you need to know what assets you have out there, or if you're trying to dive into historic alerts and see what trends are in your network, the data is there, and we are happy to slice and dice it however you like. And of course, these are the kinds of things Mark was talking about, our more full-service offerings. These are the kinds of information that you can expect us to provide to you, as well as there for your perusal on the agent at any time. And I think that takes us through the platform. So I will go ahead and hand it back over to Sarah.
Thank you, Ben, for walking us through that demo. So now that you all have seen how it works, we would really like to talk about our commitment to client success. So one of the core values of this partnership is our commitment to client success. And this doesn't just apply to the initial deployment, which we support through the expertise of our onboarding teams and partners, but it also extends through our support process, continuous service monitoring, and our dedicated client success managers. We value the relationship that Mark and CSG has built with his clients and want to be an extension of his team and ensuring your all success and really just maximizing the existing investments that you all have made. So I think that this is a good point to close out. And this concludes our partnership webinar on how to maximize your existing investment in Riverbed. Thank you so much for sticking through the entire presentation. We have been very excited to share this news with you. At this point, we're going to open up the floor for any questions that you may have. So go ahead and start sending in questions via the chat feature, and we will begin answering soon. If by any chance we don't get to all of the questions, know that we will make sure that we follow up personally after the webinar.
We had one question here regarding Ben's, this is Mike. We had one question here regarding Ben's demonstration of the ESP portal. When you clicked into the, I think, toolbox, the question is, what other capabilities can you show or empower an engineer to use using the toolbox functionality? So can you speak to that a little bit, Ben?
Absolutely. Let me head back to a Riverbed device. So there's, oops, hit the wrong button. There's a ton of value here in this toolbox. Adding your devices is really simple. You just provide the IP username and password, and we'll fetch and maintain the rest of these technical details for you, which may not sound like a lot at first, but if you're anything like us, we were using spreadsheets just passed around the office to keep track of all of our IP, username, and password, and we didn't know that our passwords were out of date until something critical came up and we had to log into the device. So the fact that ESP is constantly polling these devices is a great way to check and make sure everyone's in sync. We also maintain a schematic of a schematic for the devices. So if you're, say, noticing an issue with a remote device, you need to call someone at the site, walk them through how to check, are all the cables in the right place? Is everything plugged in? This is a great way to do that. We've already hit command mode, but we also, of course, record all of those commands so you can look through and see what's been done. And as well as we offer a few pre-canned commands, so whether you need to ping the gateway, primary or in-path. You can restart the management backend if you're having trouble logging in, as well as the front-end web server. And of course, command mode itself for any other commands you may need to run. And then all of that is recorded and fully exportable to the format of your choice.
So the point here, Ben, is that this precludes an engineer having to go to an individual device and being able to log into a device and run a command against that device. You can also run commands against the entire infrastructure from this interface as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yeah. So if there's a change that you need to make across your network, command mode is a great way to do that. You can select a list of your devices, issue your command, and get your results all in one place.
Okay, thanks. I think that pretty well addresses that question. We have one other question here from a deployment perspective. Let's see, how do you license the software, and how do you deploy the software? Ben, can you speak just a little bit to the deployment as a VM?
Absolutely, yeah. So we do use a VM model. We host that for download in the AWS cloud. You can download it from there and then install it anywhere in your network, so long as it has access to all of the devices that it needs to monitor. Setup is pretty painless. You just get it installed, get it configured so that it can access your network, and then from there, all we need is a list of address and contact details for the sites, and then IP, username, and password for the devices, and you're off to the races.
Okay. Sarah, I'm going to turn it back to you. I think we've got a few other questions, but we can go ahead and answer those offline.
Okay, great. So thank you all again for investing your time in this and being active participants. If you all have any further questions or would like to expand on any of the information provided, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are more than happy to assist in any way that we can. Please stay tuned to take a survey after we close out the webinar. If you do have any difficulties taking the survey after, you'll be emailed a copy to complete. So thank you all again very much, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you all.